Okay. So, in the previous class, we have discussed data types, variables. Third, we have discussed about functions, then types of functions, and in that, we have discussed on the basis of definition, and second, on the basis of parameters and arguments. Now, let's start with the very basic thing, but this will be the thing who will be deciding your time complexity. Your whole approach will be deciding with how many loops and how many iterations you are making in your whole logic. Fine. So let's start with that. That is looping statements. So before starting with it, anyone can tell me that what is a loop? Why we use a loop? Anything. Just unmute yourself and tell me what's the purpose of using a loop.
So to run a block of code again and again.
Again and again. Okay. Anything
Perform
else?
sequence operations.
Performs?
Sequence operation, sequence iteration given based on the given range.
Okay. Okay. That means, can I say this thing? Can I say this thing?
r-
If, yeah, Akash,
run a code, repeat, I mean, again and again.
running a code again and again. Okay, fine.
to run
Any,
to
mhm,
run a specific set of instructions for a certain amount of times.
mhm. Okay, okay. Somewhat correct. Okay. So let's just go with three things. That is why, how, and when. So let's start with why we are using a loop. So the reason of using a loop to perform iterations, which will be of two types. That is repetitive and non-repetitive. You must be wondering about, sir, you have written the word iterations and how you're categorizing the whole thing into two parts, that is repetitive and non-repetitive. Fine. So repetitive simply stands for, let's say you have a task to print your name, that is Nitin. Let's say what I want to print my name, and the task is I have to print this particular string for 100 times. Fine. So what I'm doing something on a repetition manner, that the same instruction, the same command is being repeating for 100 times. Fine. But what's non-repetitive? Non-repetitive simply means, let's say in my first iteration, I'm printing one. In my second iteration, I'm printing two. In my third iteration, I'm printing three, and so on. So the moment when you are executing some block of code and the particular instruction is being repeating in a form of a sequence or in a form of a repetitive manner, that is being called as repetitive iterations. And if I'm doing something in which my commands are being changed in every moving iteration, that is being called as non-repetitive iteration. So loop is being used to perform iterations, and iterations are being categorized into two different parts. The first, which will perform something, which will be used to perform something on a repetitive manner. Nothing will be changed, and this guy will be printing or will be executing a command which will be changed in every moving iteration. Fine. So loop is being required to execute something on the basis of iterations. Fine. So the first concept can be, sir, what if I have to print the values between 1 to 10? So the basic intuition is, Sir, this will be my print statement, and I'll be printing 1, 2, 3, and so on till 10. Now tell me one thing, if I'll be following this particular approach, will it be an optimal thing? Will it be an optimal approach with the use of time? Let's say, let's say to write this particular function, you are taking 5 milliseconds. So in total, you would be taking 50 milliseconds, which is still very, very large. Fine. So what a good programmer will do, if he or she will get to know this thing, that I have to perform something on a repetitive fashion, right? So in that condition, I'm gonna use loop. So what I'll be doing, I'll be starting my loop from 1, and I'll be moving till 10, and I'll keep printing the value of current I, which is denoting the current iteration. So tell me one thing, if I'm using a loop and that loop is running from 1 to 10, so can anyone please tell me what will be the number of iterations I would be making?
10 iterations.
10
10 please.
iterations. 10 iterations. That means you're moving till 10 times. Your code is being executed for 10 times. That's it. So looping statements are being used to perform iterations that can be repetitive and that can be non-repetitive. And the motto of using loop is to perform iterations. That's it. So we are done with why we are using loop. The second question is how we are using a loop, how to use a loop. So in general, we have three types of loops, but we'll be going with two of them, that is for and while. So can anyone tell me what's the difference between for loop and a while loop? Anyone? We are using these two loops in our day to day problems, but what's the basic difference between a for loop and a while loop? Anyone?
The while loop, if you don't know the number of iterations, you need to go for the while. And if you know
Okay.
the iteration count,
Uh, by the way, hey. It's who's this? On
Mahesh.
Mahesh. I don't know why, but your voice is not clear. It's breaking.
Oh, okay. Hello. Is it
Huh.
audible now or still
Yeah,
the same issue?
yeah. It's fine. It's fine.
Okay. If you know if you don't know the iteration count, then we will usually go for the while. If you know if you know the iteration count, then we will go for the for.
Okay, okay. Anyone else? Anyone else? Very good, man. Anyone else?
I think the basic difference would be that in for loop we have to initialize the iterator,
Mm-hmm.
and in while loop we just have to put the condition.
In while loop, we have to put a condition.
The,
Okay,
just the condition, and in for loop we have to do condition and then also initialize the iterator and then also maybe add it or subtract the value.
okay. In short, correct. So let's just go with some basic real life example. Let's say this is your house and this is your school or this is your nearest supermarket. Fine. And the goal is to move from your home to that particular supermarket. And let's say this supermarket is at the distance of 11 kilometers. Fine. So the thing is, you have an initial point, that is your home, and you have a final point, that is this supermarket. Fine. And the distance will always be 11 kilometers. So you will be using a for loop if and only if you would be knowing the initial, you would be knowing the final, and you would be knowing the condition where you have to stop your iteration. So the thing is, the moment when I'll start my journey from my home, my I will be zero because I haven't traveled any single distance. And the moment when my supermarket will come, the total distance that I would have been covered is 11 kilometers. So the thing is, keep moving your eye until your eye is less than 11 kilometers. And every time you will be moving kilometer by kilometer. So I plus plus. So what I did, initially my I would be zero because if I haven't traveled any distance, my kilometers will be zero until when I have to stop, the moment when I have covered 11 kilometers. And every time I'll be moving kilometers by kilometers. So you will be using a for loop if and only if you know the exact distance you have to travel. But what about this while loop? So let's say this is your house and the prompt is, hey, you will be moving until the nearest supermarket comes. Let's say this is supermarket number 1 and this is supermarket number 2 and this is supermarket number 3. So the condition is you'll have to stop the moment when you will be at your nearest supermarket. So let's say the nearest supermarket can be a distance of 10 kilometers. It can also be at distance of 15 kilometers and it can also be at the distance of 20 kilometers. So the thing is, you don't know the exact distance that you have to travel. So you will be stopping at that moment when you will be at the nearest supermarket. So if in any problem you don't know the exact distance, you don't know the stopping condition, you don't know the exact distance which you have to travel, but you know when you have to stop. So the condition is you'll have to stop the moment when you will be at the nearby of any supermarket. So in the case where you know the exact distance which you have to travel, you'll be using a for loop. And if you didn't know the exact distance, you will be using a while. Guys, am I clear with this example that what's the difference between a for loop and a while loop? Say me yes or no, or just give me a thumbs up if I'm clear on this or if we are on the same page. Fine.
Nitin, just one question.
Yeah, please.
Sometimes, there are situations where you can use either while for loop,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which one
Mm-hmm.
would you prefer, like while or for? Or does one
Okay.
of the loop takes more time to
Mm-hmm.
execute or to iterate over the
Mm-hmm.
other, or both will take the same time?
Okay. First of all, Shika, if I'm using a loop, so it doesn't matters that how much time will that loop take, right? Everything revolves
Okay.
around everything revolves around only one thing, that is how much iterations that you're making. If you're using a while loop, so if the given input is n and you're moving for 10 iterations and this is the value of your n, and if you're using a for loop and it's also making 10 iterations, so the end total time complexity will be always same. Either you are using a while loop or you're using a for loop. Fine. So you cannot calculate the exact number of iterations. You cannot say this thing here, man, this loop will run only for 5 times. This loop will run only for 10 times. Everything has been dependent on the value of your n, the given input. Fine. So the moment when you'll start solving the problems, it will not be written like this. Hey man, you have to make 10 iterations. You have to make 5 iterations. It will be like, hey man, you have to make n iterations. Fine. So if we are going in general form, so the place where you are using a while loop, you can also use for loop in that same place. But what we believe being a good programmer, if I don't know the exact distance, I'll be using a while loop, and if I know the exact distance, I'll be using a for loop. That's it. My time will not be categorized on the basis of for and while loop. Am I clear? Shikha, am I
Yes.
clear? Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Now the basic syntax of a for loop. So the syntax is, the first you have to write where from where your loop will gonna start. Second, the condition. till when your loop will run, and third, increment or decrement. Let's say what I want to print the values in between 1 to 20. Fine. So my condition will be like, for I'll have to use a variable which will be used to print the values. And if I'm using a loop, so I'll have to declare a variable which will be responsible to make the number of iterations. Fine. So let's say I have taken a variable I is equals to 0. So the very first value which I have to print is 1. So I'll be starting with 1. And when I have to stop, the moment when my I is either less than 20 or equals to 20. That means keep running this loop until your I is less than 20 or equals to 20. The moment your I will become 21, your loop will gonna break and you'll be getting the desired output. And every time, what you want to increment the value of your I with plus 1. If for the first time you have just printed 1, so in the next iteration you'll be printing 2, 3, 4, and 5. What happened? Someone has raised his hand. Is it? Okay. So in every iteration, you will be needing one plus value of your current iteration. So that means I will be equals to I plus 1. That's it. That's fine. And what if, sir, we have to print the values from 20 to 1? That means we have to print the values like this way. Let's say like this way. I'll have to print 20, 19. This will be my 18, 17, 16, and 1. So instead of starting my whole iteration from 1, what I would be doing, I would be starting my whole iteration from 20. My I will be equals to 20. Acha, can someone tell me what will be the stopping condition for this loop? Anyone?
I greater than 0.
Okay.
I greater than 0.
So the thing is, I'm starting my iteration from I is equals to 20. So what I would be doing, every time my I will be decremented by 1. So in the first iteration, if it is 20, in the next it will be 19, in the next it will be 18, in the next it will be 17. So there will be a moment jab by decrementing my current value, my I can become 0 or my I can also become negative. So I'll have to keep moving till my I is greater than 0. That means it will stop exactly at 1, because after 1 there would be something which is equals to 0, and after that there would be something which is less than 0. So I is equals to 20, I is greater than 0, and every time I want to decrement the current value of I, that is I is equals to I minus 1, and I will be getting my output is in the form of 20, 19, 18, 15, 17, 16, and 15, and so on. So this is the implementation of for loop. The first will be from where you are starting your iteration, when you are stopping your iteration, and at which value you are moving your iteration. Fine. And let's, someone has raised his hand. Ritvik Bhatia.
Sir, can we use I minus minus or I plus plus, or is it different than I
No
plus one
man,
on
no
the other
man, no
hand?
man. The thing is, uh, the moment when you are writing I plus plus, you're still writing the same thing, that is I plus 1. And the moment
It's
when
the
you're
same thing,
writing
right?
the moment when you're writing I is equals to I minus 1, it's still same as I minus minus. Fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Uh, Before starting with the next loop, just take 5 seconds and tell me if you are being confused with any particular thing. I'm all ears. Okay. So the second loop is our while loop. So in this, I may be not knowing the exact distance which I have to travel, but I know one thing. Let's say what I have to do, I have to print the values in between 1 to 10. So I know one thing, from which value I'm starting, that matters. I know one thing, if I'm taking a variable I is equals to 1 and I'm incrementing it every time with I plus plus, so there will be a moment when my I will be greater than 10. So the moment your loop will break, that will be the condition of your while loop. I'm repeating once again how you will be deciding this thing. What will be the condition of my while loop? The condition is the moment your loop will gonna break for any particular value, that will be the condition for your while loop. So I know one thing. If I have to print the values in between 1 to 10, and the moment my I is greater than 10, I have to stop my iteration. So let's start with that. While my I should be always less than 10, and the very first value of my I will be 1. So I'm printing the current value of I, and in the next iteration, I'm just incrementing my I with 1. So next time my I will be 2, and it will check, is my current I is less than 10, that is 2 is less than 10, so 2 will be printed. Then I have I plus plus, my I will become 3. Is my 3 less than 10? Yes, it is. Then I have 4. 4 is less than 10. Then I have 5. 5 is less than 10. Then I have 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. But 10 will not get printed because here I have written I is less than 10. If I have to include this 10, I have to put equals to sign here. Either my I should be less, my I is less than 10, or my I is equals to 10. So after 10, my I will become 11, and 11 is not less than 10. This whole loop will gonna break, and you will be getting your desired output, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's it. Guys, are we on the same page? If you guys are clear with the difference between while loop and a for loop and the implementation of both the loops. I think Ritik,
Yes,
you are
sir.
saying something. Okay. Okay. Okay, fine. Now let's start with the should I write the code? Should I write some basic things by using while loop and for loop? Is it needed? Is it needed? You can just raise your hand and it's fine. If I have to write something that is A for apple, so
Yeah,
it's
I
fine.
think if you can just write for Python because that would be little different.
Okay. Okay, fine. If I'm writing in Python, then I'll also have to write in C++ and Java, right? And I'm okay with that. The very first thing which I'm writing is the implementation of for loop. I have the very first thing which you'll be writing is the syntax of for loop, that is for. And I just told you to start your iteration, you'll be needing something, a variable, which will be denoting your current iteration. Variable denotes the current iteration. That's it. Then I have this for loop, the syntax of for loop for, and you have to specify a variable. Fine. And that variable let's say I'm giving I as the name of that variable, and what I want to print the values in from 1 to 10. That's it. So what I have to do in my for loop, there's an inbuilt function that is being called as range function. Just a second. Okay, I'm sorry for the disturbance. Uh, there's a function called range function. Fine. And what this function does, let's say I have 1 to 10. So what I have to do, I have to put a range, and in that range, my for loop will operate. Fine. So as we know this thing, my range will always be less than 10. So what I did, if I have written range 10, that simply means my whole loop will run from 0 to 10. But, but, the value which you are giving here will not be included. It's explicit. Fine. So if I have to print the values from 0 to 10, I'll have to put the range from 0 to 11. Fine. So that the value which you are giving in your range will not be included. So if you want to print the numbers from 0 to n, so the range will be n plus 1. Fine. So let's do that. So my range is from 1 to 10. So for I, so for the values in range 10, just keep printing the values of I. Let's run this. And I have the values from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And the thing which I have just told, this value will not get printed because it will be excluded. So if I want to include 10 in my answer, so I'll have to go till 11. Let's run this. And I have numbers from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Guys, am I clear with this? Am I clear with which language are you using? Right now I'm using Python, but I'll be converting the whole thing in Java and C++ also.
Nitin,
Fine.
I have one doubt. If you
Yeah,
take,
please.
it will be, if you take 1 to 10,
Mm-hmm.
so the loop will be start from 1,
Mm-hmm.
and by default it will be start from 0. You
You can
didn't
also,
write any.
man, you can also do one thing. Just do like this. Do like this. Run this. See, you have 1 to 10.
Okay, okay,
Fine.
fine.
So if you
Thank you.
won't be if you won't be giving the lower bound, it will be 0 by default,
Okay,
right?
okay.
So आपकी मर्जी, what I want to print the values between 5 to 10. So I'll be writing 5 to 11, and I'm have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Fine.
Okay. If you don't write anything, it will be start from 0 to 10.
It will be by default 0, because if you haven't given any value to any particular variable, it will be 0 by default, right? Okay. Yeah.
That is a depend on start, stop, and step.
Yeah, exactly. So this is your initial value, this is your stopping condition, and this is your variable which will be incremented in every iteration. Fine. Am I clear? Guys, am I clear? Okay. Let's write the whole thing in Java also. Where's Java? Yeah, yeah. What happened? Why this is not changed? Okay, I'll have to refresh it. Okay. So let's use a for loop here for, and I'll have to specify the data type. In Python, we haven't int I is equals to 0. What happened? Why I'm not able to print? Right. Okay. Int I is equals to 1. I should be less than or equals to 10, and I plus plus. And what I want to print the values of 1 to 10. That is print ln and current value of I. Let's run this. What happened? Okay, I think I missed assignment operator. See, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Fine. Anything else? Are you guys clear with a for loop in Java? Fine. Should I write in C++
Nitin,
also?
can you
Yeah.
Nitin, can you say where we can use I plus plus and plus plus I
Okay. So the difference is
increment of
if you are using it in a loop. So let me tell you the difference first. Let's say, where's my pen? Give me a second. Okay. So if you're using a loop, so plus plus I and I plus plus, they both be working same. There won't be any difference between these two if in a loop you're using plus plus I or I plus plus. But in general, I plus plus is post increment and plus plus I is pre increment. So let's say you have written y is equals to I plus plus and the initial value of I is 1. So what would be done? The current value of your I will be still 1, but your y will become 2. And in the case of plus plus I, your I will also become 2 and your y will also become 2. So the difference between post increment, pre increment, post decrement and pre decrement is if you are using a post increment operator, the value will be assigned first and used afterwards. And in the case of pre increment, the value will be used first and increment afterwards. That means I will become 2 and y will become 2 in the same step the moment when you will be writing plus plus I. But if you have written y is equals to I plus plus, so I will not be incrementing its value. It will be shifting the incremented value to the assigned variable. That is 2 and I will be 1. So in the next iteration, this guy will be 2. That's it. So if you're using a post increment operator, the value will be assigned first and used later. And in the case of pre increment, the values will be assigned later and used first. Guys, am I clear with the difference between pre increment and post increment? Am I making sense?
yeah.
Okay. So post increment, I'm repeating once again. In the case of post increment, the values will be used afterwards. It will be assigned first. And in the case of pre increment, the values will be assigned afterwards and used first. That's it. So, but in the case of for loop, plus plus I and I plus plus, they both be acting as the same, right? That's it. So I think do I have to write the whole thing in C++ also? I think Java and C++ they both are acting as the same. There's, there is not any big syntax difference. Is it needed, guys? Is it needed? Yes, sir. Okay, man. So let me convert the whole thing in C++. Okay, fine. So let's use a for loop here. Int I is equals to 0, I is less than 5. Not 5. Let's move till 1 to 10. I plus plus. And what I want to print the current value of I. So let's just copy this print statement. Copy this. We'll paste it here. And instead of writing this hello world, I'll be printing the value of I. That's it. Remove this. Select this. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. What I want to add some sort of space because everything is being so cluttered. That's it. Let's run this. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right? Guys, are we on the same page in terms of loop?
Sir, is the range function only available in Python?
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to use range functions in basically the thing is na Python is a very short stepped language. Basically the whole thing is if you have to write a very short code when you are dealing with Python. Fine. So there may be a chance that in majority of companies interviews, so you won't be getting Python compiler. You'll have to write the code either in Java, C++, or JavaScript. Fine, because there are a very good amount of libraries, a good amount of shortcut methods which you can use, and your whole code will become so easy, and your recruiter will never want this. Fine. So if you're writing a code in Python, I'm not saying anything for that, but the thing is, Python make everything small. Fine, and no one wants to take shortcut, right? No one wants Everyone wants to take shortcut, but no one wants you to take shortcut. Can we use JavaScript also? Yeah, you can, but JavaScript it's is quite complex when you're dealing with data structures. Fine, because JavaScript is also loosely typed language, right? Fine.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. It's okay if you're working in Python. I'm not saying anything, but if it's good to go, try to switch your language to Java or C++. It's fine. Okay. The next thing which we have is our while loop. Let's see there. Let's see that. So let's say I have in Python. So in Python, what I'll be doing, uh, the syntax of while loop first, and I know this thing. I'll have to print the values from 1 to 10. So I'll be taking a variable and that variable will be starting with 1 because this will be the first value which will be printed initially, that is from 1 to 10. Then I have while loop and I have just told you the condition of while loop is that same condition where your whole logic will gonna break, your whole loop will gonna break. That is, my I should be always less than or equals to 10, a colon. And what I want, just keep printing the current value of I, and every time I want the next updated value of my I, that is I is equals to I plus 1. That's it. Let's run this. Let me just comment it out. I won't be needing this. Let's run this. See, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's fine. Guys, am I clear with the while loop? This is my initial, this is my condition to stop, and this is my updating iteration. Guys, are we on the same page in terms of Python? Are we? Okay. Let's write let's write the thing in Java. फटाफट लिखते हैं. Int I is equals to 1 while I is less than or equals to 10. system.out.println the current value of I, and every time I want to increment the my current value of I with 1. Let's run this. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's it. Right? And let's write the whole thing in C++ also. Let's just comment it out. Why? Before that, I'll have to initialize a value of I, that is int I is equals to 1, while I is less than or equals to 10. And let me just copy this. I want to print the current value of my I, and I don't want it to be fumbled, so I want to add some spaces, and every time I want to increment the value of my I with 1. So let's run this. Okay, I missed a semicolon. Have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So the moment when you can use for loop, you can also use a while loop there. But if you know the exact distance to be traveled, just please use a for loop. And if you not, just use a while loop. Just use a while loop. For and while, you should be clear with when you have to use a for loop and when you don't have to use a for loop. Right? Guys, just give me a thumbs up if I'm clear with the looping statements. Okay, fine. Now, the third thing, I think we have 20 minutes, right? So I can cover one of the most important topic, and this topic will always be there throughout the data structure. Fine. So it's like you are preparing for something which will never get end, right? So the name of that topic is, now just unmute yourself and tell me what's the meaning of time complexity. जो भी आपको पता है थोड़ा बहुत क्या होता है, क्यों करते हैं, just please tell me.
Basically, how much time will you take the whole process in the
How much?
terms of
Okay. Anything else? बढ़िया हर्ष भाई. Anything else?
How much time the compiler takes to process your instructions and to perform and give the output.
To perform and give the output. Anything else? Hritika, do you want to contribute?
How much time it will take
How much time it will take? Okay.
How
to
much iteration it takes?
run an algorithm?
Run an algorithm. Okay,
How
fine.
much iteration it takes to complete?
How much iterations it takes to complete? Okay. Okay, fine. लगभग सबका सही था, but the thing is कि we have to come up with a definition जो throughout the journey applicable हो. Fine. So let's start with that. So from now onwards, if someone will ask you that what is a time complexity, please don't say this thing. Time required to run the code, or the total time taken by your algorithm. प्लीज इट्स अ रिक्वेस्ट, आज के बाद आप कभी भी ये चीज नहीं बोलोगे. फाइन. सो what you would be saying, so the correct answer is, it is the total number of iterations your looping statement is making. That means your whole time complexity will always be calculated on the basis of looping statements which you have used in your logic. If you have used four for loops, if you have used two for loops, so the whole time complexity will be revolving around the number of iterations which you're making. That's it. So it's not the total time taken by your algorithm. It's not time required to run the code. It is the total number of iterations your looping statement is making. Guys, are we on the same page? The exact definition. Okay. Shiva Prasad. Okay. Are we on the same page? So from today onwards, you guys won't be saying this. You guys won't be saying this thing that it is the total time taken by the algorithm. No, it is the total number of iterations which your looping statement is making. That's it. Fine. So the number of iterations your loop will make, that will be the total time complexity. Fine. Now, why to be worried? Why to be worried about time complexity? So the thing is, let's say there are some uh, default state time complexities, that is big O of 1, big O of n, big O of n square, and big O of n cube, and big O of log n. So before starting with this big O notation, let's just categorize how to calculate time complexity. Fine. So the time complexity can be calculated in three forms. The first form is, and the forms by which you will be calculating the time complexity, those forms are being called as notations. Fine. That is asymptotic notation. Asymptotic notations means there are of three types. The first type is your omega. The second type is your theta. And the third type is your big O. This one. Fine. So the time complexity is being categorized on the basis of three notations, but the whole time complexity, the traditional way of calculating time complexity will be always be revolving around big O notation. If any of you have worked on big O note, if any of you have worked on time complexity or have solved some problems, you would be knowing this thing that everything will be calculated in big O notation. Is there anyone who knows anything about big O notation? Anyone? Does anyone knows about big O notation? Okay, no worries, no worries. It's fine. Now, the first one is your omega notation. This is being called as lower bound condition. And what is lower bound condition? It is a condition in which you can say this thing, my time complexity will not be less than this. If I have written my time complexity is big O of n, or if I have written my time complexity is big O, let's say big O of n only, or omega of n only, that means the time complexity will be as much as the code takes, but it will not be less than omega of n. That means if I would be saying this thing, hey man, I have at least 10 rupees. That means I can also have 11, I can also have 15, I can also have 1000 rupees, and I can also have 10,000 rupees. That means omega notation is the at least condition for your time complexity. So you can simply say this thing. This is being called as the best case time complexity. That means your code would be taking as much as amount of time, but it will not be less than this given time interval. That means if I would be saying that, hey man, I would be there in 5 minutes. That means, let's say I would be taking 6, 7, or 10 minutes, but it will not be like that I would be there in 3 minutes. Fine. So, omega notation is nothing, it's just the best case time complexity, a lower bound condition, and is being called as at least condition for your time complexity. The time complexity will be as much as, but it will not be less than the given interval. That's it. Guys, are we on the same page in terms of omega notation? Uh, in the case of hash map, if you are performing the basic operations, that is insertion, deletion, and searching, that takes big O of one time complexity, that is in constant time. Fine, we would be coming on that, but for now, time complexity in best case is being represented by omega notation, right?
No, no. The question was like
Mm-hmm.
you said the definition is like time taken for number of iterations. So just wanted to know like
Mm-hmm.
what will be the whenever we are using the hash map or any data structure for to solve the problem,
Mm-hmm.
like how this definition will work.
Okay,
Like
so this definition will work. Let's say you're inserting any element or you're searching any element in that data structure. Fine.
mm-hmm.
So you would be using some sort of looping statements. And if you're not using any looping statement, the time complexity will be constant. Am I making sense?
Okay, okay.
Fine. So the moment when you have used any loop, the parameter of time complexity will be introduced. That's fine. So from now on, if someone will be saying this thing, that man, the time complexity of this code is big O of one, that means that guy haven't used any loop in his logic. That's it. Fine. Okay. So we are done with the omega notation, that is best case time complexity, that is lower bound condition, and that is at least condition for your time complexity. That's it. The second thing we have is theta notation. It simply means the time complexity will be in between your omega, and it will be greater than your omega, and it will be less than your omega, sorry, less than your big O. Fine. So it is an average case time complexity. It will represent the average case for your time complexity. That means the time complexity is in between the best case and the worst case. This is your theta. Fine. So theta notation represents the average case time complexity for your whole approach, because it's in between your best case and the worst case. That's it. That's it. Are we on the same page in terms of theta notation? Just say me yes or no if I'm being clear on this.
Yes, sir.
The third and the most important and the traditional way of calculating time complexity is big O notation, which we will be using throughout our journey, because the best case, the worst case, and the average case will also be represented by big O notation. That is worst case. Worst case, जिसको we used to say upper bound, and that is being represented by this notation. Oh, fine. So me- I have this worst case scenario. Fine. So when we were dealing with omega notation, so I have used a word called lower bound, and I've also used a word called at least condition. Fine. So this is your at least condition in the case of omega, but in terms of worst case time complexity, it is at most condition for your time complexity. At most condition. So what does it mean? It means, let's say I told you that, man, I have at most 1,000 rupees in my pocket. That means I may be having zero, I may be having 10, I may be having 100, but I would not be having more than 1,000. I won't be having 1,010 in my pocket. So worst case condition is you have to decide the extent at when your code will gonna break. So the thing is, we used to say this thing, now man, I would be late for this venue, but I won't be late more than 10 minutes. That means that person can be late by 1 minute, 2 minutes, 4 minutes, 6 minutes, but that person will not be late more than 10 minutes. He won't be late for 11 minutes, 12 minutes. So worst case condition is a condition of at most and upper bound condition for your time complexity. So in short, you can also say this thing, your code will be taking that amount of time which will be the maximum time for your logic. Your code will never gonna take time more than that required frame. If you have written a logic and the worst case time complexity is, let's say I have written 10 seconds. So your code will never be taking time more than 10 seconds. It can be in 1 seconds, it can be in 5 seconds, it can be in 9 seconds, but it won't be more than 10 seconds. So from now onwards, we will be calculating the time complexity with big O notation. That's it. So being an engineer, being a programmer, being a guy who's good into data structures should be knowing this thing. This whole world is running to find the worst case scenario for everything. Because let's say what I did, I have a car, let's say I have a car, and the fuel capacity is 100 liters. And with 1 liter, I can travel 12 kilometers. So what I did, let's say this is my house and this is the destination where I want to go, and the distance is 300 kilometers. So what I'll be doing, I'll be having, let's say, 50 liters of petrol, and for 1 liter I'm going 12 kilometers, and for 50 liters I'll be going 750 kilometers, and I have to travel 300 kilometers. Fine. So what would I be doing? Let's say I have 25 liters, so the half of 750 is 375. So I can go till 375 kilometers. So just tell me one thing, will I be thinking about this thing, that how much petrol I will be needing, or will I be thinking this thing, what would what would I'll be doing the moment this 25 liters will get exhaust? Just say me this thing. Will I be worried about the distance, or will I be worried about the petrol which is inside my vehicle? Just tell me this thing. What would be the cause? What would be the cause? What should I say? Like what would be my real problem? Thinking about the distance or thinking about the petrol? Say me this thing. Confused, right? So the distance which I'll be traveling will be associated with the amount of fuel I'm having. So I won't be thinking much till I'm before 375 kilometers. But the moment when my vehicle will cross 375.1, my whole tension will gonna rise, right? So I won't be thinking before 375. My whole tension will gonna start after 375. So this 375 is the worst case scenario. So in our daily life, we always think about, man, what would happen if this won't work? What would happen if my time runs? Fine. What would happen if my deadline crosses? Man, the thing is, being an engineer, let's say my boss has given me a task and he was like, Nitin, you have to complete it by 6 p.m. So Nitin, the whole tension of Nitin will start after 6 1 na? So Nitin will be chilled. Hey man, I have 5 hours, I have 3 hours, I have 2 hours. अभी तो मेरे पास 4 घंटे हैं, अभी तो मेरे पास 2 घंटे हैं. But रियल टेंशन तो 6 बजे के बाद शुरू होगा ना. He will be like, नितिन काम नहीं किया आपने. Fine. So 6 p.m. is the upper bound condition for me. So in our daily life, we are always thinking about the worst case scenarios. Being a programmer, being a human, being anyone, we always think about the worst case scenarios. That's it. Fine. Typical engineer problem, doing everything at last. Even if let me tell you one thing. Let's say I have an exam, right? When I was in my college days. So if I would be having my exams right now. So let's say my exam is on 26th and we were a group of 5 people, right? So we would be starting our study and all before that particular night. And my father used to say this thing कि जो पढ़ाई उस रात को होती है वो और कभी नहीं हो पाती है. Fine. So we are also like we doing DSA in 6th sem. It's okay, Ayush. There was my friend and he has started DSA in 8th semester. And the thing was, the moment he has started that, he has started with a very good. What should I say? That guy was motivated, right? It's never too late. Even I may be having connections, and in that connections there are some people who are like 40, 45, even 50s also. Fine. So what they are doing, they have started data structures, because the moment when they have started their journey, there was just a basic requirements for programmings and all. Fine. But now the things are changed, right? So it's never too late, Ayush, Kushwaha bhai. We are here. It's never too late. Let's start with a very good motive. That's it. So that's all for today. We have discussed time complexity, the notations to represent time complexity, this difference between while loop and a for loop, the implementations of while loop and for loop in all the three languages, that is C++, Java, and Python. Take 10 seconds, revise the things which we have discussed till now, and if you want to ask anything, just please ask. Okay, he's in Flipkart as an SG2. Shreyas. What is n log n? Uh, let's say you're running a loop and that loop is running for n times, and inside of that you are making an iteration which is going in log n. So in total it's n log n, right? So we would be discussing this algorithm, the algorithm which takes n log n. Fine, you don't have to be worried about that. Jenny, repeat big O notations. Mahesh, big O notations is something, it is an upper bound conditions for your logic, right? It simply means your time complexity will never exceed this much amount of time. If I would be saying in general that the worst case time complexity, the time the code will take in the worst case, let's say it's 10 seconds. So it can be 1, it can be 2, it can be 5, it can be 9, but it won't be more than 10 seconds. So 10 seconds is the upper bound condition, is the utmost condition. So the upper bound condition and the utmost condition is being denoted by big O notation. Right, Mahesh? Anything else?
Hi, Nitin. Not related to the topic,
Yeah.
but I just want to start the lead code. Would you like to give me any advice how to, where to start from?
Start with basic arrays.
अच्छा,
Yeah.
ठीक है.
Did that person take gap after graduation, like to prepare? No, man. That guy was working in MNC. That guy was in TCS, and he worked there for 1 year, and then that guy switched.
Nitin,
Yeah, Harsh.
I am having one question actually. How to manage the notice period? Actually, someone gave the answer, also gave the answer in the group to
Mm-hmm.
buy out.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any other option to manage the notice period? 90 days notice period.
The thing is ki you can do one thing. If your interview was fine and if your interviewer is one of that guy who's a good person, fine.
Yes.
Ask him one thing that can he serve the initial days in that company as work from home, right? Because the moment when
Okay.
you'll be joining office now, the whole thing will get ruptured. Ask him, just come up with any झूठ का बहाना that ये हो गया वो हो
Actually,
गया. Yeah.
right now, work from home is going on.
Okay. You can ask about that. You can ask about this thing that can I just go for work from home for initial 3 months? That's it.
So how can we manage two jobs parallelly?
Man, you have to manage. If you're switching, that means you may be having some sort of
Is it
improvement.
is it is it possible to work same two